All right, let's start with government audit. This is the second session of this, right? And we were left with three specific audit, right? We till yesterday we didn't complete audit of commercial accounts. We didn't complete audit of inventory and stores. Then what else was pending? Audit of receipts altogether was pending, right? I think only this much portion is pending from the government audit. Rest we already completed. Okay, so we'll do some writing practice of all three. Let me share my screen, guys.
Recording in progress.
Audit of receipts. Are we missing someone? I think Priya is not there. Priya? No, she has not joined, right? Okay. No. When it comes to the audit of receipts, we are talking about the receipts of government. Government, what kind of incomes does the government normally has? Their basic or the primary income that comes from the taxation. Either it comes from the citizens in the name of income taxation, or it comes or income tax or wealth tax, or it comes from the businesses with relation to the goods and service tax or the income tax as well. Now the point here is, when you want to do the audit of receipts, don't just don't just test whether the amount is received or not. You also have to test how government is actually calculating those tax, how they are assessing to whom the tax is applicable, to whom the tax is not applicable, how they are sending the notices to the people that you have to pay X amount of tax to the government, right? So it's the whole process of assessment of tax, evaluation of it, collection of tax, and not just collection of tax. And also a lot of people claim refund from the government. If they feel the lot of tax is collected by the government, and which is more than what they were required to pay, they will then apply for the refund. So what is the procedure when the government is issuing refund of those taxes to the people, right? So it's the whole process that we need to understand. Let's start with the first point, guys. When you do the audit of receipt in case of the government audit, first start checking whether all revenues due to government have been correctly assessed. Assessment means evaluated, then realized and credited to government account by designated authorities. Have you heard the name of Central Board of Direct Taxes? कस्टम्स के लिए भी सेपरेट बॉडी होती है, डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस के लिए, जीएसटी के लिए. सो ऑल ऑफ दीज आर द designated authorities who need to make sure that they are also crediting the government to the taxes collected in the government account, right, on a timely basis. So the tax is correctly assessed, revenues are assessed, realized, and also credited to the government account. Now, the problem here is, it is not just about they can assess or realize or credit any amount. What should be the goal? That the assessment and the credit has to be as per the rules and regulation. So the point B says, verify whether adequate regulations have been framed by concerned department to secure what? An effective check on assessment and collection. So for effective assessment of the tax and the collection of tax, there has to be adequate regulations and they need to be framed by the concerned department, right? Third, SIF only framing the regulations is not enough. Verify whether regulations and procedures are actually carried out. Done? Then you have to check whether adequate checks or controls are imposed. For what? To ensure prompt detection and investigation for irregularities, or if there is a case of double refund to the taxpayer, or if there is any forced refund vouchers issued by the people officials, or any, this is vouchers, or any other loss to revenue due to fraud. Right? So first point, let's recall, the first point said you have to determine whether all the revenues has been correctly assessed, realized and credited in the government account by the authorities. Second, there are adequate regulations are in frame which can ensure that the assessment and collection is done effectively. But just framing the regulation is not enough. You also have to write the third point that these regulation and procedures are actually carried out. Then there has to be a special consideration for the fraud related items. For example, there is any irregularities in the department with regards to the assessment, with regards to the collection, or there are double refund issued to the taxpayers, or there is any fraudulent refund vouchers that has been utilized, or there are any other loss of revenue of the government due to fraud. So the fourth point is very specific to the irregularities and the fraud, right? Then review, you should review the system and procedures to verify whether internal procedures are adequately secured to ensure correct and regular accounting of demands and collection. So for collecting the taxes, government raises the demand, the department raises the demand, and then they collect it. So all you need to do is ensure that there are proper system. See, demand is not raised in any normal courses. Okay, can you tell me, Ronan, when exactly the demand is raised by the government or the tax department?
When they are not paying.
Exactly. So when I'm supposed to pay the tax, but I'm not paying the tax, and then only the government will raise the demand notice. So you may think now that already we are talking about the adequate regulation. Why are we still talking about this point over here, point T? Because point T is for the cases where the people are not paying taxes, that businesses are not paying taxes to the government, and that is why they have actually raised the demand. So you have to ensure that the demands are correctly accounted and the collection of those demands are also correctly, also properly accounted. So did you understand the difference between the point above point 3 and then the last point? My question to you is how much you shall audit? Who will determine? In case of the government audit, who determines to what extent you will apply the audit procedures?
CNAG.
CNH, right? Come to the next audit, that is audit of purchases and stock inventory. Both are together. Alexa, turn on bedroom. So in case of purchases, they don't call it like purchases as such. They call it stores. So stores include all all kind of purchases made by government, and then the subsequent inventories of it. Audit of accounts of stores and inventory has been developed as part of the expenditure audit with reference to the duties and responsibilities entrusted to the C&AG. What will you do? Conduct the audit. How will you conduct the audit? First, ascertain whether regulations governing purchase, receipt, issue, custody, sale, inventory are well devised and properly carried out. For purchases, purchase of inventory, raw material, for receiving the raw material, for issuing the raw material, for taking the raw material into custody, or for selling the raw material like goods, and for actually finalizing its inventory. All of this entire process from purchases to sell and inventory, there has to be a regulation for that. Find out whether that regulation is properly devised and properly carried out by the government, all the departments. Are we clear, guys, on point 1? If you notice any deficiencies in the purchases, what will you do? You will bring it out to the notice of government. Your second objective over here is how will you, when you do the audit of stores and inventory, you will bring to the notice of government any deficiencies in quantities of stores held or any defects in the system of control. So if you find any difference in the inventories held by the government departments, any department, any government departmental store or entity, or there is a deficiency in the internal controls of the government for the stores and stocks, stores and inventories, you will have to bring it to the notice of government. Now, go back to the government audit and remember that government audit of expenditure. We studied that very first point, right? All the expenditure needs to be sanctioned first, right? So now they are also talking about the purchases, all kind of purchases. So purchases are nothing but expenditure only. No, this is part of expenditure or audit only. So you have to verify to verify that purchases are properly sanctioned, comma, made economical and as per rules of purchases laid down. Yes, very much related to the above point economical, you also need to make sure that for any purchases, the government officials, the price they are paying to buy this AC, to to do the repair and maintenance of the building, for buying any material, they are paying the reasonable price. The price needs to be reasonable to ensure that prices paid are reasonable and in agreement with those shown in contract for the supply of stores plus the quantity is certified by inspecting and receiving department. So, for example, my dad used to work in the ordnance factory. Ordnance factory, now though it is a dissolved entity, they have actually made subgroups of that ordnance factory now. I think 3 4 years back. But ordnance factory, what do? They actually manufacture defense equipment. So for the Indian defense, whatever is the defense equipment, including their clothing, including that the guns that they produce, the powders for that guns, the any equipment that they need for, like, for any war like situation, for the entire military, for the army, it is manufactured by the ordnance factory. It was manufactured by the ordnance factories. Now the thing is, every of these ordnance factory has a stores department, receiving department. My father was a chargeman of that department, so he was actually at the receiving unit, inspecting unit, so he has to ensure that he's also all that. So for making a gun and all those equipment, there are precious metals that they are used, and those precious metals are too expensive. It is not very easy to get those metals, right? So he was in charge of the entire stores department where all that material was kept. Now, every time the material will be inwarded, he has to inspect it and certify the quantity that is received. So, as an auditor, you will need to check two things. One, the prices which are paid for those inventories purchased are reasonable. And second, the quantities are also certified by the inspecting and the receiving department. Are we clear, guys? And the last point, point 5, to check accounts of what? Of receipts, comma, issues and balances regarding accuracy, comma, correctness and reasonableness of balances in inventory, with a particular reference to specified norms for level of consumption of inventory holding. Now, this sentence may be very big, but I'll tell you in short. Do you all study the costing subject? Now, in costing, you must have studied for producing a X amount of quantity output, you need a Y amount of input raw material. Exactly, that is a normal consumption norms. For making this one Apple pencil, they must have specified the amount of raw material they would be needing. All you need to see is whether the accounting of that consumption and inventory holding is done properly or not. So how do you ensure that every time the raw material is being issued from the stores, so raw material is received, it is accounted. Raw material issued for the production, it is accounted. Balances at the end of the month are properly accounted. They are correct, they are reasonable balances. And the consumption is also done as per the norms established for the consumption, right? So for example, for example, think about an Indian department, Indian Railway Department. Now there is manufacturing of a huge train bogies, the compartment, that is a huge capital investment that they must be doing, the railway department, right? The government is India is actually doing that investment. So you have to think like how would they even ensure so much of the accounting of the raw material, receiving, issuing, balancing every month end. It's crazy. So because of the humongous production level they must be having. So this is how in a government department you ensure that all the purchases and the inventories are done as economically as per the expenditure sanctioned. There should not be any internal control issues. There should be a proper regularities in the purchases, receiving, issue, custody, sale and the closing inventory balances. There should be a proper accounting all of that. That is your point 5. What do you say, guys? Can you please revise first 2 questions so that I can go to the third question, the last question of government audit? How do you do the audit of commercial accounts? Before you do the commercial account, please understand they are talking about they are not talking about the P&L account as such. They are talking about the commercial activity. And commercial activities can be done by the government in 3 forms. One, the very basic one, there can be a company जिसका stake, the government will take the stake of that company, so it will become a government company. Can you name some of the government companies, the popular ones?
ARCL.
Right. Does government have any stake in Indian Oils? IOCL?
ONGC.
ONGC? Right? Now, there can be some statutory corporations in which the government can hold a stock. Can you tell me some statutory corporation in which the government is holding a stock? LIC is a statutory corporation where the government is holding the part. Can you tell me some departmental enterprises through which the government is doing the commercial activity? Indian Railways. Indian Railways is nothing than money only. No, it is a departmental enterprise. Yes. Right. So public enterprises are required to maintain commercial accounts and are generally classified into 3 categories. One, the department and enterprises which are engaged in commercial and trading operation, which are subject to the same laws, financials, and regulation as other government departments and agencies. Then comes the statutory corporate bodies or corporation created by specific statutes, mostly financed by the government in the forms of loans and grants. Then the government companies set up under the Companies Act. Now, how do you do the audit of these commercial activities? It's a very small answer that department, like, it's a very general knowledge based topic they have given here. So, like, once you know that, you know. So, for departmental enterprises, audit is done in the same manner as any government department. where commercial accounts are kept. Then audit of statutory corporation. Audit of statutory corporation depends on nature of the statute governing that corporation. Now think about LIC. It's an insurance company. What is the governing body for an insurance business? Guys, tell me, Google it, tell me. IRDAI? IRDAI is actually regulating all the insurance business in India. So the IRDAI will determine how the government, how the insurance business will get audited. Yes. Now the government companies. Abhi government companies, hai na? It is companies only. Who will do the audit? Who will determine how to do the audit? It is the Companies Act. Yes. So in respect of government companies, audit is conducted by auditors appointed by C&AG as per Companies Act provision. C&AG has adopted mechanism of an audit board C&AG has adopted mechanism of an audit board which is comprised of representatives of audit and nominees of government, including functional specialist. I'll repeat the last line. In case of the government companies, in respect of government company, audit is conducted by the auditors appointed by C&AG as per the Companies Act provision. C&AG, what they have done is they have given a mechanism of audit board in which they have included the representatives of the audit. They would be coming from the Indian audit department only, and some other government officials, the nominee of the functional specialist, so that those are the people who can actually conduct the whole of government companies audit. Can you tell me in the number of days in case of government company, the C&AG can conduct the supplementary audit
60 days.
from the date of
Receipt of audit report.
from the date of receipt of audit report, right? Other than the government audit, do you know from which topic they have asked the question in Jan 25 exams, guys? Let me just see quickly,